everyone, and welcome back to RippleMakers, a podcast on the human side of transformation. I'm Ranan Bhattacharya, Practice Head for Change and Transformation Consulting at MARG. And I want to start today with an observation. In the last month alone, I have had a few different leaders ask me variants of the same question, that why is transformation so hard? Even when we get the best of the people, best of the technologies, everything right. And the honest answer sits in a single number, that industry reports are showing that 70% of the large transformations program still miss their goals. And that has not changed in the last more than 2 decades of time. So RippleMakers is my attempt to keep asking episode by episode to the leaders who do get it right by doing it differently. Today I'm thrilled to be joined by Srinivas Sampath, a very seasoned leader with over 28 years of experience designing, building, and scaling high-impact global capability centers in India. I had the privilege of working with him for a good amount of time, and he has done what very few leaders have actually done end-to-end, setting up India entities from scratch, be it the statutory, the legal, the operations, and grown them from zero to a large scale, while turning them into genuine strategic centers of excellence rather than just the delivery arms. What makes his perspective unique is that he sits at the intersection of 3 things most leaders only even see in pieces. On one hand, global stakeholder strategy, on the ground, operating models, and a deeply people-first lens on culture and engagement. Srinivas, welcome to RippleMakers. Really glad that you have joined us today.
Thanks, Ranan. I think it's a wonderful initiative that you are starting because many of the normal podcasts focus on generic topics, but I think you've taken the topic of transformation and trying to understand what organizations go through. So having that lens, I think it's fantastic.
So my opening question to you is that from inside, when you walk into a GCC or a business unit, what do you actually see, hear, and feel that tells you that this place can transform? Or maybe like it tells that, no, this place is not ready for transformation.
Okay. Yeah, that's an interesting question because when you walk into an organization, it's usually very difficult to find out if they're ready for transformation just from a surface level, right? A lot of it happens, when you start talking to people, when you start seeing the processes that are there, and you start seeing what kind of cadence that the organization is trying to, push for us to understand whether they are ready for transformation. So my observation across these years has been that many organizations think that they are ready for transformation, but they actually are not, right? And the gap starts, showing up as soon as they put in place a transformation program, and they realize that it is not going as per plan. So if I have to look at, okay, what does a transformation organization ready should look like? I think there are 3 things that come together, and each one of them has a different level of importance, and how deep somebody goes into them really makes it a success or a failure. The first one is, any transformation program, people should understand why it is being done, right? And you should talk to anybody within the organization, and they should give you that same explanation of why this transformation is happening. Right? You should not see vision statements, or you should not see on a slide why something is happening so that nobody can, really relate to it, but a clear reason as to why this is being done and how it connects to what people do every day, right? And like I said, anybody in the organization that you talk to should be able to explain it. I think that's the first formula that organizations have to get right, which is a why part. Now, the second is most transformations have an end state, right? But defining what that end state or defining what success will look like even before you start, right? Makes a very good understanding of what the end result will, look like for the organization. without that, you're just going to keep moving left, right, up, down, and really not understanding where you're heading, right? So defining what success looks like, not just in financial terms, but actually how will the organization look like, maybe after the transformation. Putting that out gives some sort of a visualization for people to, relate to. And the last one, which I think most organizations tend to miss or even undervalue, is what is a communication cadence that you're doing from day one, right? Many transformations, touch lives of people, right? And if you don't, as a leader, communicate, or as an organization communicate regularly, people will fill the gaps, right? And how they fill it is not something you can then control, right? So having a very clear communication cadence and making sure that you live up to that cadence, is a very big step. So that would be those three things that I would look for in an organization when I walk in, right? First, you need to understand the why. Two, definitely there has to be a very clear understanding of what success looks like. And three, what's the communication cadence?
Moving on, maybe like picture this scenario. A leader walks into their office on a Monday morning and their CEO had just told them that now you own the AI agenda. Figure it out, make it real, but show measurable impact in 12 months. So I know you have advised boards, you have advised senior leaders in this kind of mandate, taking something ambiguous from the top and turning it into an operating reality on the ground. So what's the first thing they should do, and what's the trap you would warn them about?
Yeah, I think the first thing, and this is true for any mandate, although I know the current flavor of the month is probably AI. You see AI in front of everything. But I think the aspect of, dealing with a mandate and taking it from beginning to end, there are multiple things that need to fall in place. But the first thing I would always say is as soon as you are given a mandate, first slow down, right? Because the immediate instinct that anybody has when you're given a mandate is you start doing, right? You start looking at, okay, what tools do I need? What are the pilots I should do? Who are the people that I should select? Should I create a task force? You start getting into the doing part, right? And that's a big mistake, because before you even start doing any of these things, you need to kind of step back and ask the why question that we talked about, right? And why does this matter to the people within the organization, right? Why am I given this mandate, and why is this mandate important for the organization? So in the context of AI, like you said, it's understanding why is the AI mandate important for the organization, right? So getting that right before you jump into things, really matter. And we are just not talking about, why it matters only to the organization, because like I said, any transformation touches people, right? So you need to understand how it matters to every single department within the organization and how they might perceive it, and, how things might change for them. Because the biggest part in any transformation is change, right? People have to unlearn, or people have to stop doing something that they have been doing for many years, right? And that usually takes time for them to understand why I should stop doing something and then move on to a different thing. So having that understanding of what this means, for the organization is a big first step in any mandate before you jump into things. The second thing is, how somebody should be communicating, or how you as a leader should be communicating as things, unfold, right? Because a transformation program doesn't always go the way you plan, right? There is always ups and downs. But understanding how you will communicate success and how you will communicate failure is very important. Because, in the context of something like AI, right, where the space is changing so rapidly every single day, you also have to have a mechanism of how do you deal with uncertainty, right? And, not assuming that everything will go as per plan. So thinking about how you will communicate success and failure as part of the mandate is also something that, you as an individual on the day one needs to have a very clear clarity, right? Because there's a big difference when we use the word mandate or when we use the word announcement, right? Organizations sometimes announce that they're, adopting AI. And some organizations might say that we are mandating AI, right? So what's the difference, right? Announcement, I feel, just creates noise, right? Everybody will be scrambling because you made that announcement. But mandate, you're expecting to create a momentum, right? You want the organization to change. That's why you're mandating, right? So there's a big difference between how you react to an announcement and how you react to a mandate. And, in the context of a leader getting AI as a mandate, it's understanding why. It's understanding why it's important for the business, and then being very clear about how you communicate success and failure. I think these two things, if it's done very well, any mandate can kind of, start pretty successfully and have a very clear path.
So my question is that from your experience, do you see AI resistance fundamentally a new kind of a problem? Or is it just the same old human resistance turned up much louder?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question, Ranan, because the rate of change of AI, like we just discussed a little while back, is very rapid, right? So the kind of traditional change management aspects that we might consider in any organization, it takes a different magnitude, I think, when we talk about it in the context of AI, right? So if you look at a traditional, I should say, change management or the resistance to change management is almost always about discomfort, right? People have been used to doing certain things for a very long time, and it takes time for them to learn a new habit or lose the power that they usually had when it comes to expertise. So it's just discomfort, right? But I think any discomfort is usually manageable because it responds to some amount of training, it responds to time, it also responds to communication, right? So by doing these things consistently, you can take care of discomfort, right? But AI, I think, is something that is fundamentally different, because I feel what you see in the news every day about what AI is doing, if you summarize it in 2 words, I think AI is introducing what we call as existential uncertainty, right? It is about not knowing what is going to happen if you start, using AI, or if you get involved in this whole AI race, right? So it's not about somebody not wanting to use a tool, but somebody not knowing what their job will become 6 months to 1 year to 2 years down the line, right? And that question you cannot answer with certainty today, right? Because the field is changing so rapid that you cannot put a pin in the future and say, okay, this is how your job will be a year down the line, right? So when people are faced with such an uncertainty, right, they don't know how to respond, right? And they don't know what it means, and they don't know what can make them ride this change, right? So when leaders who are used to change management in the past are now trying to manage change management in the context of AI, and they use the same playbook, right, they're going to be in for a surprise, right? Because if you try to do the same training sessions, if you try to do the same change champions, if you try to do the same comms change, it will not work, because you're trying to treat a fear of displacement, right, with a model that was trained to deal with discomfort, right? And that is a very different way of looking at the problem, right? And if you kind of double click into that, there is also another layer, right? Usually any change management has a beginning, some messy middle, and then there is an end, right? But there is an end, right? Because you know what's going to happen. But in the case of AI, it's continuous, because we know that this field is changing so rapidly that you cannot define the end state. And when you cannot define an end state, humans are not wired for open-ended communication, right? They want certainty. And when that certainty is not there, I think there is a lot of resistance, right? Because people don't want to figure out that, down the line, something is going to happen that I might not like, right? So I feel any, change management in the context of AI, you should try to see how you can give as much stability as you can in terms of your conversation or in terms of your process, so that people can move forward with it, right? Um, and if I have to look at it in a different way, we say change management is like a journey, right? And when AI is involved in it, people have to trust the journey. They should not trust the end point, right? Because you don't know what the end point is in the context of AI. So trust the journey. That's what I would say.
Let's have a little bit of fun. So all these three topics you gave very thoughtful answers. So now I want to kind of do a rapid fire with you, where I'll not give you
Okay.
much time to think, and whatever comes to
Okay.
your mind as the first thing, shoot it, and let's see how does it go. Okay. So
Sounds
I'll
good.
ask you
Yeah.
5 questions if you're ready.
Sounds good. Let's do it. Yeah.
Great. Let's start then. So the first question is that one must-have skill for leaders today.
It will be the ability to communicate with honesty, and when you don't have the answers. So you don't spin a story, nor do you keep quiet. You just give honest answers to people.
Awesome. What is the toughest belief to unlearn today?
So it's not thinking about communication as a one-time event.
Fantastic. If culture had a smell, what would it be?
Wow, that's an interesting one. Let me think. Culture, if it had a smell, it would be the smell of fresh coffee, not stale coffee.
Wow. I think I need to grab a cup of coffee immediately after this.
Yes, that's a great question. Yeah.
Thanks. Okay, next one is a little serious, but good advice for everyone. That one best practice likely to become obsolete.
I think in current age of AI, I think thinking that change management is like an annual plan. The fact that you can plan a transformation in January and go through the motions and finish it in December, that's gone, right? Change management today is continuous. Every single day you have to adapt. Every single week you have to adapt. So you have to get into your mind that you have to constantly change, right? So that I think would be a best practice that will likely have to step in, right? That change is continuous, right? Not a one-time event or an annual plan.
Absolutely. I know you love reading books. So, a book you're currently reading?
I'm reading this book called Supremacy. It's a book that I heard in one of the conferences that I attended, and it's a book about AI, and it clearly talks about how ChatGPT or how OpenAI really came into existence and who are the players behind it, and it also talks about some of the four. I mean, I don't know what you call it. It's some of the most leading minds in AI. How did they come together to form this whole movement, right? So it's called Supremacy. It's by an author called Parmi Olsen. So it's written like a story. So it's a great read, and I'm kind of midway through it. Really enjoying reading that book.
If you have to leave a single piece of advice with every leader who is listening to this podcast and someone who is navigating into the journey of transformation for the next 1-2 years, what would it be?
I would say, if I would just summarize what I just said through this whole talk, right? Just slow down, right? Don't react. Don't jump into the doing mode. Just slow down, take a step back and see why you're doing this, right? Have that clarity, have that clear cadence of how you want to understand this clarity and communicate this clarity, and take it step by step and be willing to adapt along the way. Right? We are in an era where we are dealing with change at an unprecedented level, right? It's not
That's
change
true.
that we've been used to, and the human mind usually runs into this flight or fight mode, right? So you have to resist it. So slow down, understand what's going on, decide what you need to do, and then move forward.
Excellent. What a generous conversation, Srini. Thank you so much. Really, really thank you for bringing the builder's view, the operator's view, and genuinely bringing the people first lens, because you mentioned about how important it is to support people, create a safe environment for them, keep an environment where they can trust. I think that makes so much sense. So to all of our audiences, if something Srinivas said today made you pause, share this episode with one more person on your team who needs to hear it. And we'll be back soon with another voice from the front line. But until then, keep listening, keep questioning, and keep making ripples. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, Ranan. Thanks for having me.